there was a lot going on in multiple directions this chapter, but really it was that interesting layout of the chapter, I think, that had more of my focus because of not just the contents of it, but really how it was formatted. When you really look at the chapter itself, you have the first half being narrated by Mikasa, and you have the second half being narrated by Eren. You have this whole part about Mikasa, and they're kind of trying to see life over in a more civilized, peaceful manner, but in reality, they know how things are gonna go. It has this kind of fun entryway, but obviously, right into that, there's some issues with a little kid being a pickpocket, and instead of giving up the kid to pretty much, I would assume he would get put to death. Let's just assume that, perfectly honest. But Levi, does his thing, helps this little kid out, and they end up booking it and leaving. And then we get back to, I always forget, the group name that's, they're pretty much the Japanese of the Attack on Titan world. I forget what they're called, I'm sorry. But they've gathered, and they're discussing the situation. They know how severe it is, and, the paranoia of other countries towards Marley, and they're just talking about their whole strategies for this situation, what they're going to do about this war. If they're going to go with Zeke's plan, if they're going to, go towards peace or abandon that path towards peace. And it's just all kind of working what they would hope would be like the best scenario, but really they're just kind of trying to tiptoe around the pathway that is pretty much guaranteed, pretty much towards, they're gonna want to end up eradicating the Eldians, and specifically the ones, over on Paradise Island. So, and really, they don't have much of a choice. You can have all these theories about, like, what we could do, maybe this will work, but Eren knows full well that really there's only one path that he sees himself walking down. And that little kid that they helped, he knows that what they did to help him was, in a way, kind of like against the grain of what happened to them at the start of the series, because suddenly their world was pretty much destroyed. Whereas this kid, one of the things that one of his decisions pretty much almost destroyed his world, but they ended up helping him. And because of that, he got to return to his family. And, that had to have some emotional impact on Eren, but also he knows that to succeed in his plan, it means that these families are all going to be crushed as well underfoot of all these colossal titans. And it's only in this that, he has this little moment with Mikasa, and he's, talking about, like, he's asking her why exactly she's, she concerns herself with him. And he's like, is it because of what I did for you that day and saved you, or is it because, we're family? And she ends up saying, like, they're family, and, obviously there's some blush girl moments from her. And I'm wondering what exactly, like, Eren's whole reasoning for that was, because obviously he wasn't just, like, asking her a question for the sake of asking her a question. I imagine it, was going to have an impact on his decision, because I think he wanted to know more about kind of like what he's fighting for. Is it going to be worth it in the end? What exactly is he striving towards? And knowing that he needs to protect Mikasa, it just really pushes him, because she's really the only real family he probably sees left. Because we know, even though Zeke's his half-brother, the whole sterilizing all the Eldians really pissed off Eren. Even though he's able to hold that rage in to conceal it from Zeke for so long, we know that rage, was present. And we get a nice little fun couple pages of them just partying and drinking and having a good time with each other, and just having some relaxation points. And that's the thing I was talking about, is you had this whole portion where you're really seeing it and having it narrated from Mikasa's view, and it's more in their more peaceful possible lives, but closing out in really the pathway that Eren goes. Because even looks like everyone is just like, well, the problem isn't Eldians en masse. The problem is the people on that island. And Eren saw like all this, and that's when he decided, like, yeah, I gotta go down this path. This needs to be done, because he realizes, I imagine, that no matter what, even if somehow the Eldians outside and in the other countries, like in Marley, were spared, they were gonna end up turning as well. Like, well, we don't need those ones on Paradise Island. He's like, well, this is in the end my home, my land. So, in order to protect this island, I need to get rid of essentially everybody else outside of it, because no matter what, at the end of the day, they're going to be seen as an enemy. Because even if, like, well, they're like, oh, Eldians are bad, the Eldians are going to know, like, well, these ones specifically are the ones that people are really mad about now, not just in general. So the blame is going to end up going towards them. The spears will always get, like, thrusted in their direction. And that whole thing, like, Mikasa's just wondering, like, was it always going to be like this? Or if I had chosen a different path, would things have really gone a different way? And it's really true, because, like, for instance, if she didn't end up following Eren for so long, going with him in his life, he probably would have died long before this, and this outcome never would have happened. And I gotta say, I waited a bit to mention it. For one, I really like this chapter. I think the chapter layout is really interesting. It's ominous. It, it gives you that, like, mystery of, like, if you're going into the volume, blind, of, that some intense stuff's gonna happen. Plus, the color layout I really like. I really just love that mystic space-like purple with the white, like, big light crossroads tree behind Ymir. And this panel, when I looked at I did end up looking at some of the spoilers for this chapter, because I really wanted to know what was going on, because I knew it ended pretty aggressively in chapter 22. And this one page, the one that I'm using for the panel of this chapter, was the one I wanted to see HD so bad. Not only because, well, for one, I'm a sucker for cool monster designs, but really it shows the lengths that Eren is willing to go for. He's becoming the monster that the world sees the Eldians as, specifically the ones on this island, in order to save the ones that he would call his fellow monsters. And that idea, if we're all monsters, then we're pretty much going to do what we need to in order to survive. And I like that about Eren. He's not willing to bend over for these guys to pretty much try and take away everything that they've had. He's already had everything in his life taken away before, and he's not willing to let that happen again, even if that means essentially becoming the bad guy. He knows what exactly needs to be done. And from this, all the characters are freaking out, trying to figure out what they need to do, trying to figure out, like, well, what if Eren just kills the people at Marley? What if he does these things? What if he does these things? Is everything going to be okay? But at that point, as I said, like, it opened with Mikasa narrating. It ended with Eren narrating and him speaking into the minds of all these different Eldians, giving them pretty much like a PSA on, like, this is what's gonna happen. And I want you guys all to know. This is exactly how things are gonna go, and no one is going to stop me. Eren is going to unleash, he's already undone the hardening of the walls. He's letting out all these colossal titans, and he's letting them loose upon the world, because he knows that no matter what, like I said, at the end of the day, even the ones outside the wall that would be on their side are against him, because he's not referring to them anymore as Eldians. He's talking about Paradise Island. He's calling, they're Paradisians. And that's why, if you made it this far, I'm calling this new form, until we get a canon name for this new badass giant skeletal beast form of Eren's, I'm calling it the Paradise Titan. Just because I think it fits. I think it really just fits the Titan that will create this world of peace for Paradise Island. I mean, really, you really just think that anything else would really just benefit the tone he's going with. And that aggressive, weird, aged monster last panel, I'm wondering if it was detailed like that specifically just to make it, make that viciousness really tone in well more. Or if really his physical, just straight normal body is as twisted as as it would appear. So the one thing else I wanted to really point out is I had the theory for a while that the final battle was going to come down to Mikasa and Eren, and I think the layout of this chapter, of it being really split between both of them, is just in all honesty, I think enough proof to really say that she is going to be the key factor. I was gonna say benefactor. I don't think that makes sense. The key factor in the ending of Aaron's massacre, when he ends up unleashing all these Titans to pretty much flatten everything outside the walls. So this chapter, no, this is really where it begins. We had the start up this chapter. We pretty much had last chapter, and this one we got some interesting kind of like build up of what pushed Aaron finally to get upon this spot and where Mikasa's and all this. But Aaron just knowing that this is the only way that, you know, my people are going to be safe and they're going to be able to live actually free. Because even if they're happy on the island, them knowing that these threats were out there looking to take them out and really to eradicate them isn't really living free, because you're really just living in that moment of they'll attack at some point. You're at that point you're a prisoner, you're a slave to the eventual. And I think that's what Aaron is really trying to eradicate, really set up to make it so only his people can and refix the world. Though I'm worried that I am a little bit worried that, you know, even if they end up doing that eventually, that the Paradisians would expand across the world. And, you know, humans have this terrible habit of getting into factions and sections and just groups, and that it would eventually all start over again. But maybe he would have some, you know, some person inherit his powers, or just, well, I imagine with him pretty much being able to reconstruct Eldian's bodies at this point, then he would have the power to pretty much continue to make his body young and bypass that whole time limit that they have on the shifters. But we'll see. Aaron's all ready for the end of the world. He's ready for Ragnarok under feet. So I guess, you know, if you're a foot fetish guy, you know, this whole Ragnarok is your way to go. Probably not towards giant weird flesh monsters like the Colossal Titans, but, you know, I'm not gonna tell you to live your life. But Aaron is now pretty much the final end game bad guy for Attack on Titan. I guess it really just depends on how you look at things, of whether he's the antagonist or the protagonist. I honestly feel like he's kind of both at the same time, and it really just depends on which side you're looking at. You can easily be the antagonist because for the sake of the world he's doing a bad thing, but he's doing it specifically for his side, his faction. And from the Eldian side, well, the Paradisian side, he's really doing them a justice. You know, it's all up to what I guess what side of the Titan you're standing on at this point. Other than that, comment below, tell me what you thought about this chapter, and I want to ask, like, you know, obviously give your thoughts on the chapter as a whole, but come on, tell me what you think about this design. He's got to be like 700 meters plus tall, maybe even a kilometer. Dude's huge. Dude's massive. And it's laying down, I think you got to keep in mind, because you can see legs. He's like, the spine is bending back. So Aaron is, I'd say he's definitely, like, if you lean forward and upward, he's probably a straight kilometer. But anyway, I really appreciate if you thumbs up the video, but friend the like button and the subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But on that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.